What if the love story you've been sold is nothing more than a carefully woven lie? Our protagonist sits in dim lamplight, heart hammering as he scrolls past one more romanticized highlight reel, weddings in slow motion, tear-jerking proposals, fairy tale endings promised at every click. From childhood bedtime stories to blockbuster movies, he was fed a single narrative: love redeems, love heals, love conquers all. He believed that one perfect partner would fill the cracks he feared to face alone. But that promise was never forged in truth, it was crafted to keep him compliant. He recalls the moment the illusion shattered. It wasn't a grand betrayal, but a quiet realization: her kindness felt measured, her affection conditional. Like a stage actress slipping out of character, she revealed she'd been performing roles: muse, healer, soulmate, each tailored to match his fantasies. The mask slipped, leaving him standing amid broken porcelain dreams. In that heavy silence, he confronted the true cost of the fairy tale: his own agency. He recognized how he'd surrendered his doubts, surrendered his boundaries, surrendered his self-worth in exchange for the comforting lie that someone else would make him whole. Every sacrifice he offered was absorbed into an insatiable void, leaving him emptier than before. This isn't a condemnation of love, but a wake-up call. Real love doesn't demand you lose yourself. It doesn't hide behind roles or rely on illusions. The moment you stop chasing mythical perfection and start demanding authenticity, the story changes. You stop waiting for a savior and begin stepping into your own power. If this truth stings, lean into the discomfort. It's the first crack in the facade. Because shattering fairy tales isn't about bitterness. It's about reclaiming the right to write your own ending. And that ending starts now. He believed love was a sanctuary until he realized it had been a battlefield all along. In the soft glow of candle-lit dinners and whispered late-night confidences, he discovered that every tender gesture carried an undercurrent of calculation. She wasn't simply sharing her heart, she was staking her claim on his. What he mistook for warmth was a meticulous design, each smile a strategic offering, each touch a silent contract. Our protagonist recalls the moment the illusion crystallized. She praised his success in public but questioned his choices in private. Testing his resolve under the guise of concern, he poured himself into the relationship, sacrificing pieces of his identity in pursuit of her approval. Late work nights spent drafting plans she'd barely acknowledge. Weekends traded for her emotional needs that shifted like sand beneath his feet. Each act of devotion deepened his bond, but also tightened her influence. He loved the way her presence validated him, how her attention felt like currency he was desperate to earn. Validation became his obsession, driving him to exceed every expectation only to face new demands. He was no longer in love with her. He was in pursuit of a perfect reflection of himself, a mirror that affirmed his worth. And when that mirror cracked, he realized it had never been love, it had been strategy. This stark revelation didn't shatter his faith in connection. It ignited his resolve to seek authenticity. True love doesn't revolve around power dynamics or emotional accounting. It thrives in mutual vulnerability, in truths spoken without hidden agendas. When he stopped chasing the performance and demanded honesty, the game changed. He reclaimed his worth, refusing to be a pawn in someone else's design. If you felt the sting of loving a strategy rather than a person, let that discomfort guide you toward genuine connection. Because real love isn't a tactic, it's a choice to stand as equals. Unmasked and unguarded, he thought conversation was the most potent tool until he faced her silence. In one late-night encounter, he poured out his fears, only to be met with a quiet stare that cut deeper than any argument. That hush wasn't emptiness, it was intention. She wielded silence like a blade, testing his resolve, mapping his anxieties, and teaching him that true influence doesn't shout, it waits. Our protagonist remembers the sting of being unheard, how every word he spoke vanished into stillness. He chased explanations, begging for clarity, but she offered only a calm absence that shattered his confidence. In that void, he realized she had mastered the oldest form of power, the ability to withdraw and make him lean in, to withhold response and make him reveal more. Each pause forced him to confront his own dependence on her approval. She had learned this art in a world that denied her overt authority. Without a voice in boardrooms or ballots, she honed influence in whispered moments, subtle cues, and strategic quiet. Her silence became an echo chamber where his insecurities multiplied a calculated absence that spoke volumes about his desires and weaknesses as dawn broke over the city skyline. He understood the lesson: when you control the conversation by refusing to engage, you command the stage. Her unspoken words created space for him to fill the gaps, exposing his hidden pressures and ambitions. In that exposure, she gained insight and leverage. This revelation didn't breed resentment, it sparked his respect for genuine mastery. True power isn't about volume or force, it's about timing, restraint, and the confidence to let silence do the talking. When he learned to listen beyond her silence, he found clarity in his own voice and strength in vulnerability. If you've ever been silenced by someone's calm, lean into it. Because in that quiet lies the blueprint of power and the path to your own authentic influence. He believed her gentleness was innocence until he saw the pattern, a soft touch that soothed his doubts, a tender word that eased his fears. These weren't spontaneous gifts, but precise moves on an emotional chessboard. In her quiet kindness, he mistook strategy for sincerity, failing to see how every act of warmth carried a hidden agenda. Our protagonist recalls a pivotal evening, rain tapping against the window, his heart raw from a long day's battle. She offered him tea with a reassuring smile, her voice low and calming. As he sank into that comfort, he didn't notice the subtle shift in her posture, the way she edged closer. Calculating his response, his guard melted, and in that moment, she measured the depth of his need. He poured out his vulnerabilities, believing he had found refuge. What he didn't realize was that she was mapping his pressure points, his fears, his insecurities, the exact balance between solace and dependency. Her softness was a tool, honed by instinct and necessity in a world that offered her few weapons. Each soothing gesture was a strategic invitation, luring him deeper into a web where she held the threads. When he finally recognized the pattern, it wasn't bitterness that washed over him, but awe for her mastery. He understood that true strategy often masquerades as compassion. The sweetest words can demand the greatest toll when they bind your heart to another's design. This revelation shifted his path. He learned to honor real kindness by questioning its origins and to value genuine vulnerability over calculated warmth. He discovered that true strength lies not in unguarded giving, but in discerning exchange where warmth arises from authenticity, not manipulation. If you've ever conflated tenderness with tactics, let this insight sharpen your perception. Because in the dance of intimacy, softness without sincerity is the most potent form of strategy and the greatest lesson in reclaiming your own agency. He once thought love was a shared space until he realized it was a battlefield. In the flickering candlelight of their most vulnerable moments, he discovered that every gesture, every pause, every glance was a calculated move on an emotional chessboard. She measured her advances and retreats, probing the boundaries of his devotion with the precision of a master tactician. Our protagonist recalls the first time she withdrew affection on a whim, a gentle shift in tone, a sudden coolness in her eyes, and he felt an invisible checkmate looming in panic. He scrambled to reclaim her warmth, offering declarations, promises, sacrifices, each one a desperate gambit to regain his footing. But as soon as he made his move, she shifted again, leaving him to question whether any act of love was real or simply another piece on her board. He learned that closeness could be leveraged and distance wielded as punishment. A withheld compliment became a night's leap across his self-esteem. An unexpected text, a queen's sweep across his heart. In this silent war, he found himself both commander and captive, pushing forward only to be outmatched by her uncanny foresight. Yet in that crucible, he discovered clarity. He recognized that genuine connection thrives on mutual respect. Not on strategic concessions, true intimacy doesn't hinge on who yields first or holds back the longest. It blossoms when both players reveal their vulnerabilities without fear of exploitation. Armed with this revelation, he paused the game. He set new rules: honesty over manipulation, generosity over calculation, presence over power plays. In doing so, he reclaimed his agency and invited authentic partnership in place of tactical engagement. If you've ever felt like a pawn in someone else's emotional gambit, let this insight be your turning point. Because on the true chessboard of love, the most powerful move is refusing to play by someone else's strategy and instead inviting a game where both hearts win. He thought she was his mirror until he realized she was his muse. In the gallery of his mind, he placed her on a pedestal, believing her reflections affirmed his worth. Every compliment she offered was a brushstroke painting him as the hero of their shared story. Yet he failed to see that a muse inspires creation, not reflection. She showed him the man he dreamed of becoming, not the man he truly was. Our protagonist remembers the night of perfect enchantment. She laughed at his jokes, admired his ambition, and in her gaze he felt invincible. That glow fueled his momentum. He chased promotions, accolades, victories, each victory dedicated to her approval. But when he finally stood at the summit, turning to share his triumph, her pedestal trembled. He saw not admiration, but emptiness. The mirror had vanished, leaving only the muse, who moved on to inspire the next artist. He felt his identity shatter. All his sacrifices, his calculated strategies, they'd been offerings to a myth, not a person. In the wreckage of unmet expectations, he confronted a painful truth. He never loved her. He loved what she reflected back, the version of himself he yearned to validate. This revelation became his crucible. He dismantled the pedestal, piece by piece, and looked into a different mirror, one unclouded by performance. He learned that genuine connection demands to whole beings, not one reflecting the other's desires. A partner is not an echo, but a co-creator, someone who challenges your illusions rather than confirms them with newfound clarity. He stepped away from the gallery's deceiving light and into a space of honest creation. He no longer sought a muse to flatter his ego, but a companion to share in the raw, unfiltered journey of growth and self-discovery. In tearing down the mirror, he found a truer version of himself, ready to build a partnership grounded in reality, not in the pursuit of perfection. He stands at the threshold of a new dawn, the shards of old illusions scattered at his feet. After dismantling fairy tales, decoding strategy, and reclaiming genuine presence, he faces the ultimate challenge, transforming this personal epiphany into a revolution of the soul. This is no longer about surviving emotional warfare, it's about redefining the very rules of engagement. Our protagonist returns to the world, eyes sharpened by truth, in boardrooms. He speaks with unflinching clarity, no longer placating agendas that clash with his values. In relationships, he demands authenticity, refusing to play scripted roles. He senses the ripple effect. Peers drawn to his courage, skeptical faces softening as they witness a man who refuses to bow to expectation. In one decisive moment, he interrupts a gathering of automated applause, roomful of nodding heads satisfied by polished performance, and speaks his unvarnished truth. The silence that follows is electric. He describes the high cost of chasing illusions, the emptiness hidden behind curated smiles, and the transformative power of self-directed choice. Hearts race, minds awaken. That night, he walks home beneath the city lights, his stride purposeful. He feels the charge of revolution humming through the streets, a collective yearning for a life unchained from metrics and manipulation. He knows the journey won't be easy. Old habits beckon, comforts whisper seduction, but he stands ready, fortified by every pain he's endured and every insight he's claimed. This is the clarion call. Reject the scripts handed to you, tear down the facades you've rehearsed, and forge a path defined by your own compass. The true revolution begins when you stop playing roles and start living your story. Rise, challenge the status quo, and ignite a movement of souls determined to love and live authentically. The world awaits your revolution. In this video, we shattered romantic myths, exposed love's hidden strategies, and revealed the power dynamics behind every tender gesture. We decoded emotional chess games, tore down pedestals, and learned to reclaim authenticity, leading to personal revolution and genuine connection. If you're ready to live by your own truth, subscribe for more bold insights, hit the bell to stay awakened, and share this with someone ready to break free from illusion. What will be your first step toward rewriting your own love story?